Remember when appliances had zero smart features and they just worked forever? Yeah, I do. Nowadays, you can spend almost $2,000 on a new refrigerator, and often within 1 to 2 years, you'll start having a lot of problems with it. Welcome back to the show. I'm Akorn, and today is Friday, which means it's time for Gen X and Millennial memes. But first, here is today's pop quiz. What 1980s movie popularized the phrase, wax on, wax off? If you think you know, drop it down in the comments. And stay tuned, because we'll have the answer later on in the show. AC on, AC off. Yeah, that's how my truck works too. Kids need less screen time and more creek time. I couldn't agree more. What if Stacy's mom was Jesse's girl and her number was 867-5309? That almost sounds like some of the movie rabbit holes that people go down. Be the reason that HR updates their training. Yeah, if you can do that, you're probably doing something right. Legend has it that this car belonged to a man who parked in the shade while his wife ran into Hobby Lobby for just a few things. It is kind of interesting to see how this car is basically just slowly being crushed. How many of you guys remember when Captain Kirk became the narrator for Rescue 911? I think CBS was trying to counter Unsolved Mysteries that was running on NBC at the time. At the 1988 NBA Slam Dunk Contest, Michael Jordan's air photo may be one of the greatest pictures taken in any sport. Yeah, I have to agree. Whatever photographer caught this moment definitely got a slam dunk. How many of you guys remember the banquet frozen meals? Not the stuff they got today, but the original ones back then. Age test. Like this video if you know what the 2 buttons on the car floorboard do. Don't give it away, just like the video if you're old enough to remember these. Remember when this would have bought enough candy for you and your friend? Yeah, that's back in the day when recycling didn't actually have a name, but it was actually done all the time. Today, they call it recycling, but the vast majority of it ends up in a landfill or dumped in the ocean by big business and corporations, and then they blame that on the people. America before all the sissies took over. Here's another great board game from back in the day. Call me crazy, but I love to see people happy and succeeding. Life's a journey, not a competition. That is true, but many people do not see it that way, even if they won't actually say it. Introduce yourself and what almost unalived you. We got a lot of Gen X and Boomers here on the channel, so I'll just limit my answer to one. Hi, I'm 30-foot steel beam. What would your guys' names be? My toxic trait is thinking that I could still dominate this game if I was on American Gladiators. An older brain isn't slower, it's just busy sorting through a lifetime of carefully stored information. I don't know, I think mine might misplace the table of contents and index pages too often. I came across this crush back to the 80s electric blue Raz the other day at Walmart. It seems like brands and even some stores are starting to pick up on this back to the 80s type trend. Now if they just pick up my channel. TikTokers. Me. What they ought to teach in schools these days. Respect. One of many things. How many of you guys remember Gaylord? He walks, climbs, barks, and picks up his bone. Star Wars: A New Hope will return to theaters to celebrate its 50th anniversary, but Disney didn't say which version. I was actually talking about how theaters should begin to feature some of the old films, because a lot of people would probably go back to watch them, especially compared to all the sequels, prequels, and reboots that is being done these days. It'd be better just to see the original. Speaking of Star Wars, here's a short clip about how they actually built the Millennium Falcon.
As any science fiction fan will tell you, the Star Wars saga is set in a galaxy far, far away. But when it came to building the first ever life-sized, moving prop of cinema's most famous spaceship, filmmakers chose a location a lot closer to home, Pembroke Dock. It was here in the late 1970s that a construction firm set about building a 16-ton Falcon for the second Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. This Millennium Falcon was 20 feet high, 65 feet in diameter, and it could fly, more or less.
It was built on the form of the hovercraft. Once it was up, you could manoeuvre it wherever you wanted to, and that's what they wanted for the film sets, because it wasn't going to fly, but they wanted to move on land as though it was preparing to take off.
Back in 1979, workers toiling away in this aircraft hangar were sworn to secrecy. No one could know that they were building a spaceship for the new Star Wars film. The project was even given its own code name, the Magic Roundabout.
I sat my two sons down and I said, look, Dad's been doing this job. You're not to say a word. No, we promise we won't say a word. What did they do? They went to school the following day and the whole school knew.
Inevitably, the story broke and the construction firm came clean. They were building the Millennium Falcon. From Pembrokeshire, the craft was transported to Elstree Studios in Hertfordshire, where The Empire Strikes Back was being filmed. Over the years, the spaceship has become a cinematic icon and a perennially popular toy. It's now hoped that some of that stardust will bring movie buffs to Pembroke Dock, a naval town that went from building warships to spaceships.
So if I take half your cookies, what would I have? 2 black eyes and a fat lip. Sounds like Cookie Monster needs to learn how to share, huh? I can't remember what the other guy's name is. If you guys know, drop it down in the comments. Here's Joe watching his favorite show, Akornzstash. It's always good to see people enjoying the show. If you don't do stupid stuff while you're young, you'll have nothing to smile about when you get older. That is true in some ways. Barbie's Friendship, the airplane for everyone in Barbie's world. I wonder how much United Airlines paid to have their name put on that. You guys ever hear of Back to the Future tours? Yeah, that is a real Roadrunner. They live right around here. We used to see them around here in the yard quite often, until I got my dogs. They started staying away after that, but we still hear them at times. If you've ever heard a Roadrunner, it sounds very similar to a dove, except it has a kind of a rougher sound and quite a bit louder. Today's pop quiz question was, what 1980s movie popularized the phrase, wax on, wax off? The answer is, The Karate Kid. A different word for intoxicated, but you can't say drunk. Mad Dog 2020. That is one way. How about 3 sheets to the wind? Theoretically, if I tip the tow truck driver enough to go 88 miles per hour, I can still make it to my kid's soccer game that started 6 hours ago. Fact check true. We didn't call it work ethic, we called it being raised right. That's 100% true. I never remember hearing the words work ethic back then. Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett Brown. He played a lot of different acting roles, but Back to the Future is what made his legacy. When I was little, I didn't care what I wore. I just went along with what my parents chose. When I look in old photo albums, I realize that they didn't care either. Pixie sticks, fun candy. Back when you got 5 of them for a nickel. Sell your fishing gear or fight a bear. Nah, I'm not gonna do that these days. I don't have a whole lot of fishing gear left anyway. Here is the very first Pizza Hut commercial from 1965.
Hut, hut, to the Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut, 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 to the Pizza Hut, 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 to the Pizza Hut, 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 to the Pizza Hut, hut, hut.
How many of you guys found arrowheads and things when you were kids? I think I only had a couple. I come from a time when showing up, working hard, and being decent weren't optional. They were expected. Yeah, and if you weren't, you were going to be rightly corrected too, which is one of the big problems with today's generation. Campfire smoke and silence cure things no doctor can. That is true. I forgot that I was once brave enough to do this. Yeah, you kept going, trying to see how high you could swing, hoping you could actually do a 360. Then the swing set poles began to rise off the ground because most of them weren't concreted in. Any of you guys ever have one of these in your house? Who still remembers space dust? Slug Bug, one of the great games for long car rides. Batteries not required. Let them help. Even if it takes a little longer, it's time well spent. This is very true, but I don't think a lot of people really think of it this way anymore. And then on top of that, there's a lot of guys these days that really don't know how to do a lot of things. So they're not able to show their kids how to do a lot of things either. Share if you remember. I don't remember these designs specifically. I do remember a lot of the teacups and coffee mugs that my grandmother had. What was your go-to movie rental spot? Well, I think for the vast majority of people, it was Blockbuster Video. I did go to Family Video a few times. I don't remember ever going into Hollywood Video. Yeah, homemade slingshot. Something any kid with some time and just a little ingenuity could make. You could also make the bands out of cut strips from an old inner tube. Now, if we'd have just figured out how to put on a locking arm brace back in those days, we could have really got some power. But they were pretty darn good just as is. The Never Ever Again collection. Shout out to these little guys. No better snack than cheese inside of a candle. I only had these a couple of times, but that's actually a pretty good description. All the dads getting together after mowing the yard on Sunday. I think I'd go park in the shade first. The Gravitron. The faster it spins, the more you stick to the wall. Pretty much the exact opposite of how gravity is supposed to work. I'd say most everyone has ridden that ride at one point in time or another, where the operator would get out of his little central booth while the ride was operating, and he would make it over to a wall and begin walking on the wall, stepping over people as he went all the way around. The world is healing. What a day. The Howard family of the Three Stooges has been united. For the first time ever, Curly's grandson, Curly G, Moe's great-granddaughter, Tessa Meyer, and Shemp's great-granddaughter, Chandler Isaac, got together to talk family, the Stooges, and all sorts of things. No reports of pie fights, and apparently they didn't break anything. But there's still hope for that kind of stooginess in the future. It's pretty bad, actually, about how the Stooges were taken and used by people that they worked with, allegedly people in the studios and even the networks. They were often made to believe that their show could be canceled and replaced at any time because they didn't know how popular their show really was. The older I get, the more I understand why deer run in front of cars. If you're not counting damage to the vehicle, I think the only thing worse than a deer is a squirrel. They never can seem to figure out which direction that they want to go, and they always change their mind at the last possible moment. We had it good, even if we didn't know it. The world hadn't lost its damn mind yet. Yeah, that is very true. And I'll end today's show with this. Some of the best days of your life haven't happened yet. I certainly hope so. If you enjoyed today's show, please remember to hit that like and subscribe, and share the video with your family, friends, and social media. I'd also like to thank everyone who submits content to the channel. If you would like to submit memes, links, news, or anything else, you can send it to akornzstash@gmail.com. That link can also be found down below in the video description. I'd also like to thank all of our channel members, super thanks and buy me a coffee, all of you who have placed orders through the merch store, and all of my subscribers and viewers for your support, because this show is only made possible by viewers like you. I thank you all for watching. You guys take care and stay safe this weekend. I'll see you guys back here on Sunday's show. This is Akorn, over and out.